There we go. Hi, hello, hola, beautiful people. How are we doing today? More coming in, more coming in. There you go. 75 or 70 already. Hi, Gerardo. How are you, sir? How are you doing for the day? Perfect. You all know the drill. Drop on the comments where you're from, what's the temperature at your place, and we'd love to know. Post which, something that Swapnil loves to know is let us know if you're an agency, a SaaS company, or an SMB. Please drop it in the comments. Let it fire up. Madrid, 15, Mexico, 17 degrees. That's kind of cool compared to where we are from. Vienna, 13. Beautiful. Charles, I think we're pretty much somewhere close. India, somewhere close to 30. And right now it's probably 27. 80. That's kind of hot. India, 22. Dheeraj, which part of India are you from? It? Bangalore, 25. Beautiful weather there. Awesome. But thank you so much, people. Thank you so much for taking the time today. Today, we have Harris Kenny. Harris is the founder of OutboundSync, right? And if I have to give you an understanding of Outbound Sync basically helps you integrate your sales automation platforms, your marketing tools, everything all under one place, right? So be it your deals, your suppression list, your reports, you can basically have it all single one space dedicated for that. But Harris, I'll pass on the mic to you. If you can give us a quick round of introduction along with a brief of what Outbound Sync does, we'd love to know that.
Absolutely. So, hi everyone. This is my second time on Smartlead Office Hours, and I just want to apologize. I was just at a conference for the last couple of days, and so my voice is a little tired, but I feel totally fine, and really excited to be back, and really excited to see all the participants here. We've got a bunch of people, and we've got a lot of good stuff coming in the chat. So I'm gonna give a little bit more background on myself as we go here. But I just want to say hello and say very open to Q&A as we go throughout this. I used to run a Smart Lead agency, a Smart Lead partner agency, and we were also Clay experts. And then while doing that, we identified a need to build basically a product integrating Smart Lead with other systems of record, and that's how Outbound Sync was born. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. So now we're kind of more of an app partner, I guess you could say, for Smart Lead. But we're still really active in the Smartlead community and really excited. We are users ourselves of Smartlead, so excited to talk about that and talk about how to. Today we're going to talk about unlocking outbound and then leveraging other systems, because landing in the inbox is kind of just the beginning. So really excited to cover all of that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Harris. And what we're also interested is basically the outbound maturity curve, right? Everything is a part of it, but we really love that. So, people, what Harris has is something called the outbound maturity curve, a framework that guides businesses from reactive, unstructured to a fully optimized data driven engine, right? And he's going to cover bits and pieces of it from where you start, multiple aspects involved in it. So, without further ado, let's kickstart, Harris. Awesome.
Okay, awesome. That sounds great. Let me see if I can share my screen here and make sure everything is working. 1 second.
Absolutely. And I'll take the time for that. I'll take a moment here. So Smartlead users, couple of callouts here. Base plan API access is live. New vendor going live with next week for smart senders. We have a couple of new partners coming in. We also have the revamped analytics going out in next week. So these are quick callouts. Harris, over to you, sir.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Akash, can you see my screen? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. I feel like things never work, so I'm glad I'm glad things are working here. Okay, so let's. I just want to talk about the outbound maturity curve. So Akash did a great job teeing this up, and he said it in basically in 20 seconds what we're going to spend the next hour talking about. The idea is that basically when you're doing outbound, there's a whole set of things that go along with it. And so we talk a lot, obviously, when we're using Smart Lead, we talk a lot about landing in the inbox, talk about email accounts and warm up volumes, and we talk about copy and lists. But there's a lot of things that go around this. So there's 8 buckets that we're going to talk through around your people, your process, your messaging, data, metrics, and what you're measuring, tech stack, and then I break out CRM kind of as a system of record, and then finally automation around that. So we're going to talk through all of that and how to have outbound be a strategic and proactive part of your organization. And that includes using multiple channels and having it being something that can help your company really get ahead, and not just a way of thinking about trying to get like whatever, a couple more meetings a day or a week or a month. Obviously we want to do that. But what we're finding, and just kind of big picture, is that this movement, this scaled outbound movement, is going mainstream. And if you're here right now on this call, you are an early adopter, and you are part of a group of people that are pushing this way of thinking about growth forward. Very large organizations are watching what Smartlead users are doing and how Smartlead users are thinking about growth. And they're asking themselves internally, how do we do that? Companies with thousands of employees, really large organizations, are seeing how effective communities like this are being in growing their business. So I'm really excited to be here and just to kind of share that, because we sit on the CRM side, and so we a lot of times we talk to those organizations because they have security and data and a lot of requirements that we help them meet. And that's not for everybody, and our product isn't for everybody, and that's okay. I still think there's lessons from what I'm seeing up market that I think everyone here will find interesting. And I think that sometimes we zoom in so much and we think about how many emails did I send this week, or how do I make sure I get back to my interested replies really quickly. And so I just want to take today to try to zoom out a little bit and try to provide a little perspective on what we're seeing, because what I think is happening is pretty incredible. I mean, a few years ago, when you talked about these topics with people, they would say, we don't have an email deliverability problem. What are you talking about? Yeah, we send a few thousand emails a day from our sales reps main account, from our main domain, the same domain that we use for our billing. And what's the problem with that? And now everyone knows that's not the case. But then they're asking like, well, what do we do about it? So really, really excited to have this conversation. And this is just kind of like teeing this off. So I want to make sure I can see the comments here. So just give me a second to make sure I can see the comments from my screen. I'm just going to change my window really quickly here.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, great. And so the structure, oh, thanks, Gerardo. Yeah, I mean, I'm just calling it like it is. I'm just calling it like I see it. Gerardo got hyped up about the speech, and I mean, that's just what I'm seeing, I mean, that's just reality. I think that what's happening right now, this conversation, there are going to be people that are going to be watching that are in 2 years are going to be trying to catch up where people who are here are right now. And that's, I mean, I mean, Akash, I mean, when you talk to Smartlead users, I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, I want everybody to feel good. I'm happy to hype people up, but also I'm really, really from my heart, I believe that's reality where we're at right now. So it's a really exciting time, really exciting time. Okay. So I've got the chat here. Feel free to throw stuff in there. I'm going to try to keep an eye on it. But with that, let's just kind of get into it a little bit here. So background on me. For today, I'm going to talk about how we got here, a little bit of my personal background in a little more detail. We're going to talk about the outbound maturity curve itself, talk about why you want to get this in your CRM, but really it would be, why would you want this in a system of record in general? What other data is relevant that would interact with or intersect with what we're doing what we're doing in Smartlead and Outbound, and then lots of Q&A. And we'll have a dedicated Q&A in the end, and we'll do a spotlight. You can get on camera and share some specific stuff too. Okay, so I mentioned this before, but I'll just go a little bit more personal here. So I started working for myself in 2019, doing fractional sales work. I actually worked in the hardware industry for a number of years. So I was helping a number of hardware companies with their go-to-market. And I noticed that very few of them had CRMs. So I became a HubSpot partner. And so they wanted two things. They wanted to fix their sales process, and they wanted new leads.
Right.
And so we fixed the sales process by working with HubSpot and becoming a HubSpot partner. And then we helped them get new leads by doing outbound. And we had used a number of other tools, but a little over 2 years ago, Smartlead was created. And we moved our outbound to Smartlead. And it totally changed our business. It totally changed my business. And so we've been doing scaled outbound with Smartlead for a long time. I was also one of the first Clay experts, was a really early user of Clay, huge fan of the platform. If you're using Clay, maybe drop something in the comments about what's your favorite thing to do in Clay, what your favorite enrichment is. I saw a really good post about people using Claygen. I think probably my favorite enrichment right now that I've been using the most lately, or the favorite feature in Clay that I'm using lately, it's goofy, but I use that little formula generator so you can kind of create your own custom regex. That's kind of I keep coming back to it when I need help. I mean, I should just, at this point, I've spent so much time using AI writing regex. I should just learn how to write regular expressions, but I use that probably all the time. Charles is a huge formula fan. So yeah, formula is probably my top enrichment that I use. I know that's probably not a cool answer, but that's what I use the most. And I shut down my agency full time. So I was running the agency and connecting tools between HubSpot and Smartlead. And then we had people asking, hey, we also use HubSpot and Smartlead, but we don't want your help. We have another agency, or we're doing it ourselves. We just want this little app that you built. And that came up enough that I decided to go all in and become a Smartlead app partner and a HubSpot app partner. So I went all in on that. Grew the team. We also integrate with Salesforce now, and we've grown the product quite a bit. But so that's what I do full time. We work with over 30 different agencies. I think we work with some of the best Smartlead agencies as partners, but I know there are more that we're not working with, and we hope to work with you one day. And I'm a really big believer in the agency model, and I'm a big believer in, if you're an in-house person, your skill set is incredibly valuable. I've watched companies try to stand up this motion on their own. It is not easy. Now, I'm going to skip ahead here. I've got a couple little slides, but I'm going to jump ahead because I think we covered it. And I'm just going to jump right into the outbound maturity curve. So this is a model that I've developed because I've noticed during our discovery calls and conversations with users kind of where people land in the outbound process. And so basically, if you're using Smartlead, you're going to be jumping ahead up to almost a level 4, almost immediately, assuming you've got other parts of your sales engine running, because it's going to get you ahead in a lot of ways in terms of having an advanced tech stack that's going to allow you to monitor performance that matters, which is like landing in the inbox, right? I mean, if you're doing an outbound and you're landing in spam, you're not doing anything really, right? You're just, I don't know, you're just keeping the spam filters busy. So I just want to introduce this really quick, and then we'll go through the specific stages. So a level 1, we got these little animals here. Level 1, turtle. It means that the organization's not doing outbound at all, and nobody's owning it. Maybe every once in a while, you've got a sales rep sending an email, here or there, or a founder will send an email. They see something interesting on LinkedIn, they reach out, and typically, what we've seen is that to going into an active outbound motion is where a company would look at maybe using a sequencer that's maybe built within a CRM that they're using, like a HubSpot or a Close or something else. It's not really optimized for deliverability, but it gives them the ability to send cadences. Maybe they're even using something within Gmail that allows them to do like mail merge within Gmail or sequences within Gmail. But it's simple, not really tracking things. A lot of times these organizations, maybe they're still thinking a lot about open rates, and just kind of some basic metrics around that, where, as we scale and we take advantage of some of the powerful features built into Smartlead, we actually, we see more advanced teams actually disabling open rates most of the time, disabling link click tracking most of the time to get those simple HTML emails. So emails that you literally can't send with many platforms. They don't give you the ability to send emails like that with many platforms. And so that's why, Smartlead allows you to move up the curve and do things that you just can't do with some other tools, which you might take for granted. If you've just used Smartlead only for sequencing, you've never used other tools before, you may not realize there's, one little checkbox that you might think it's just a setting. It's actually a pretty interesting feature that doesn't exist in many tools in the market. So we'll talk about that in a second. And then we start getting into the process piece. So when you're running more consistent campaigns and you're consistently shipping campaigns, consistently getting things out the door, that's where we see organizations that's maybe where they start to realize that they have maybe a little bit of a problem. When you're running consistent campaigns, that's when you start to see, hey, I'm getting, I sent out like 1,000 emails, but I didn't really get any replies. What's going on? And I don't want to say this the wrong way. Tell me Akash, help me out here. Rishab, is that the right way to say that
Yep, it
name?
is.
Rashad. Okay, cool. So I do all the time. Response rate's the king. Positive response rate is a metric that tells you how your email campaigns performing. Absolutely. So Rashab's right, right? So a lot of times people in this consistent phase, they're like, okay, I'm sending out campaigns once a week, or I've got a sequence running all every day, but I feel like I'm not getting replies. Like, why not? What's going on here? And that's when they realize, oh, actually, I've got to go deeper.
True.
I've got to go deeper and I've got to get better data. I've got to get like categorizing these replies. What kind of reply is it? Right. And that's where Smartlead's AI categorization is really powerful.
Thanks.
And you can even have your custom categories built into that. But that's where you start to go drill down deeper and say, okay, and that's where people move up to a more advanced platform. That's if you're running a smart lead, you can, without too much effort, you can get to that level 4, in my opinion, where you can just be looking at more important data. And then we'll talk about that. And then level 5 is where you have feedback loops. You're using multiple channels. You're using multiple data providers,
Right.
and you're really kind of going. If you're familiar with Eric Nowoslowski's work, the kind of stuff that Eric talks about in his Loom videos. So we're going to talk about that in greater detail here. So before we go forward, I just want to stop. I just want to give everyone a chance. If you have any questions, drop something in the chat and we can talk through this, because this is going to tee up the next probably 10 minutes of conversation here, going into these specific levels. And then you can think about maybe where your organization is at and what it would take to get to the next level. So if there's any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm going to take a sip of water here. I see Eunice has a good Smart Lead question. I'm going to let Smart Lead answer that. And all right, give me a sec. I'm just gonna have some water and drop some questions in the chat if you got them.
And in the meantime, for Eunice, I'm dropping a message for you, but you go to your campaign settings, you scroll a bit down, and you'll find your AI lead categorization. So that's available for every plan. Additional information, we by default use GPT-4 Mini for that. If you're a GPT-4 user, you can connect your GPT-4 to create even custom lead categories if you want to. So yeah. But people, in the meantime, if you have any questions for Harris, drop it in the chat. We'll pick it up and we'll get those answered.
All right. Rashab has a good one in there about receiving a response. It's just a comment. You can add a tag, and he's got those categories. Great call, Rashab. Absolutely. All right. So let's jump in here. Had my water. Feeling good. All right.
So good to know.
So we covered this. This is basically, you're basically not doing outbound, right? There's not a ton to talk about here. I think the biggest thing I want to emphasize is that if your organization is in this level, you're at risk. Companies that are not doing any outbound at all are at risk of disruption and losing pipeline. So if you're relying on Google search, or you're relying on a social media channel, and there's some disruption for whatever reason, algorithms change or platforms get banned, or your account gets locked, or who knows, right? Or you're just relying on maybe one employee's personal network, or you're relying on trade shows, and let's just say hypothetically there's a global situation where trade shows stop happening for a little while, right? I'm sure everyone remembers a few years ago when that happened. If you have all your eggs in one basket and you don't have a proactive way to go out and generate leads, it's probably fine until it's not. And so, what we find is that at some point organizations say, look, we don't want to be reactive like this. And we want to have the ability to be proactive, go on offense, go find opportunities for our organization and not be stuck. And that is, I think, the most important mindset to adopt. When we bring on outbound, what we're saying is we want to be able to, be a live player, right? To borrow a phrase, like don't be an NPC, right? You don't want to be an NPC when it comes to growth of your organization. You want to be a live player. You want to be able to go out and influence pipeline and make stuff happen. Thanks for joining us, Shalom. Really appreciate you. All right. Let's go to the next one here. So let's talk about active. This is where we're getting started. We've decided that we want to be at least able to exert some influence over our ability to grow our organization. And we've got an emerging process. We're using basic tools, maybe general list polls. Now, for organizations that are just getting started on this level 2, starting to be a little more proactive. A lot of times this is founder-led, but many organizations will bring in an entry-level SDR and they'll have them function in this way too. And I think that's what's good about this is that you're getting started. Getting something out the door and learning is good. The risk, I think, for organizations at this stage is they push the volume too high And this is where you run into the situation where you can have potentially risking domain health. So I think with active basic testing, basic sequencing, basic lists, you're going to have higher bounce rates. You're going to be probably doing some segmentation is going to be off, and that's okay as long as you keep a lid on your volume. It's when companies let the volume drift up. And so to give you some specific examples, if we're talking about sending hundreds of emails a day from generic lists from our main domain, that's when you're going to start having a problem. So there's nothing wrong with being in this stage of an outbound process. But you have to remember that if you can jeopardize the health of your domain, and that's your organization's ability to communicate with the world. You have to be careful about letting this volume go up too high, because things like bounce rates matter a lot. And if you're bouncing a lot, it's going to create issues for your domain. All right, let's go to the next slide here and talk about being consistent. So this is now where we have a consistent process. We've got a standardized and documented process. I think especially this is where we see companies tend to have a dedicated contractor or full-time hire, and their job is, listen, I want you to get fresh campaigns out on a regular basis. You're thinking about deliverability a little bit more, and you're moving beyond some of the basic metrics, and you're starting to focus, like Rashad was mentioning earlier, you're starting to focus on replies and reply rates and positive reply rates. Starting to think about that. And now if you bring in an agency, if you go to Smartlead.ai, and if you look at some of the certified partners and experts there, they can get you just basically immediately, the minute you start working with them, they can get you consistently shipping.
Right.
And I just want to emphasize that, like, it is not easy to consistently ship decent copy to decently targeted lists. It is not easy. It requires really commitment. And it doesn't matter if you're using the best tools in the world. If you're not being consistent, you're not going to be able to get results. I really like this quote here because it's from, jumped ahead by accident. But it just talks about how you have to standardize a process and you have to measure that process. All right, so I see some really good things coming in the comments, and I see some great people jumping in here. Let me just look at this. We've got, okay, I want to go on offense. Like Harris is saying, I have Smartlead. My biggest problem is getting a lead list to send to. Yeah, and so this is where we talk about, like, this challenge of getting to the consistent, right? So you can be active and you're thinking about it, but then you jump up to that consistent. This is exactly what we're talking about. Hey, how do I get that lead list? Can anyone recommend? And so I love what Max is doing here. I mean, and Akash, your answers too. I just want to spotlight this because this is like exactly what we're talking about. You're saying, okay, I want to be on offense. I want to be proactive. I'm going to start sending some things, but I'm having a hard time doing it regularly. Like, this is it. And don't underestimate how hard this is. What Jamie's, or maybe it's Jaime, what Jamie's mentioning here. So Max is right. Depending on your list, you can pull from providers like Apollo, A-Leads, ListKit, D7 Lead Finder, Local, and you can check out Clay. Smartlead does have native integration with Clay. So I would say you've got like a two-tier problem here potentially. One is that you need a list, and then if you're getting a list that's a little bit more like raw and unsegmented, then you're going to need to segment that list to get it put in the right buckets, and that's where a tool like Clay can be really helpful. So yeah, consider one of the first things to think about is, are my customers going to be on a tool like LinkedIn or not? Are they going to be in some of these structured B2B databases that like an Apollo or a ListKit would find where they'd be listed there? And if so, there's some great providers that can do that. Seamless.ai. I mean, there are quite a few to look at. Cognism is another. I mean, as you move up market, there's ZoomInfo. But there may also be unstructured, or at least a little bit relatively less structured databases. Like, they could be on Google Maps. You could use a tool like Serper to identify them through search results. They could be on Yelp. They could be on, Angie's List or Houzz, Houzz, or something like that. And so you got to think about just where are those prospects, and then can I get them from a provider where they're ready enough that I can just put them right into Smartlead, or do I need to do some sub-segmentation within that? So I maybe get a bunch of contacts from Google Maps, and then I use the tags in Google Maps. So let's say I'm selling to car washes, and I want to sell to car washes that have like an express option versus not just like any car wash. Like that's where you would use segmentation in a tool like Clay to potentially build that out. And then, and then the thing is, how do you do that on a recurring and a regular basis too? All right, let's jump ahead here. Rishab's got some great advice here. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but if you go to the chat and see what Rishab is talking about creating subsets of leads and the number of sequences, I think that's exactly right. What's being mentioned there. Mirjan asks about bouncing percentages. What's high? I would say, it depends on your risk tolerance and look at how Smartlead's going to measure that. But some of the providers will talk about, like Find Email talks about having a guaranteed refund or satisfaction guarantee if the bounce rate exceeds 5%. Lead Magic is another provider, works closely with Smartlead. I think the thing about bounces is that you have to remember that there are quite a few different reasons why bounces can happen.
Exactly.
And so, Akash, do you want to talk about that a little bit and how Smartlead thinks about that? Because I think that's an important topic.
Absolutely right. Because one thing that people think is they always fall back to the lead enrichment tool if there are bounces. But what I would suggest is to analyze your bounces. So in Smartlead, in the inbox section, you'll basically have the bounce reply you've got. So there are hard bounces, there are soft bounces. Usually the one with error code starting with 4 are soft and the one starting with 5 are hard. But what I would recommend is analyze your bounce, download the CSV, write a prompt, push to GPT, see which reason seems to be more, and we start working from there. If it seems to be a case where lead does not exist is more, then probably you should work around your lead enrichment tool and the verification process. But if there are other things, right, let's say a recipient server rejected your email, which can be an indicator for poor deliverability or poor IP health, we got to work from there. So that's one thing I want to highlight, Harris.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so Smartly builds a lot of that stuff in. And again, on some of these platforms, it's literally not at all in there, right? Last thing I just want to touch on here, as we talk about this stage in the outbound maturity curve, is that you're starting to think about how do we go from our outbound data model to a full funnel data model. So in Smartlead, sales engagement platform, and it can facilitate action for your sales team. One unique feature in Smartlead is the ability to create manual steps in your sequence.
True.
You can create call tasks. You can create social media outreach steps if your customers are on platforms like LinkedIn or X or something like that. As we get those leads and they get marked as interested, eventually we're going to need to move them over to more of a full life cycle understanding of, okay, they went from an MQL, now they're an SQL, now they have a deal or an opportunity. Eventually that customer is going to convert. So there's this kind of conversion event that happens when it moves from one data model to another. And this is where organizations that are at this level 3, they're starting to think about that. They have consistent understanding of that data, and it's able to go from one system to like what's next. What's the life cycle going to be? And how can I start to think about attribution? So I want to look at positive replies, but not only do I want positive replies, but I also want to think about positive replies that resulted in deals, positive replies that resulted in closed won revenue. And how can I start to think about that? And so in this stage 3, when you're doing consistent sending, one of the little things that you need to have, in my opinion, if you're here, is you have to have a consistent naming convention for your campaigns. If you're naming your campaigns differently each time, it's going to limit your ability to actually execute at this level, because you're not going to be able to easily do reporting and cross-object reporting and kind of dissect what's happening. So a consistent naming convention, in my opinion, is a really important facet of being here. Now, I just want to mention, we have, if you go to outboundsync.com, we have a very long, couple thousand word article breaking down all of this with a lot more detail. So please feel free. I know this recording is going to be available after the fact, so you can always rewatch it. You can always reach out to me with questions, but we do have a little bit of a longer resource on this. I can make sure I can drop it in the chat here for people who are interested. I mean, stick with us. Don't leave the conversation. Oops. I sent it as a DM by accident. There we go. But know that there's more here. There's a lot more to this. Let's keep going. And we're almost done here. We're going to jump into, we're going to have a lot of time for Q&A at the end. So let me just find my little screen control. Oh, here it is. Okay, coordinated. So this is where we're starting to run more of a refined process. We're starting to use more specialized tools. And we're starting to do more of the diagnostic stuff that we were talking about. The reviewing of bounce data that Akash was talking about. Super important. You can have bounces because you're not, I don't want to call anybody out here, but it's possible that you can have bounces because you're not doing a good job managing the health of the accounts and the domains. The data is actually fine. You can also have bounces because they don't exist, right? You're sending to, whatever, poop@acme.com. Yeah, that email address isn't real, so it's going to bounce, right? But you can have essentially throttled sending where your own email provider is blocking the sending from going out because of the health of the inbox. So it's really important to think about that. Sometimes it's the data provider, definitely, but sometimes it's you, and sometimes it's things you can control. And so having advanced metrics that allow you to manage that and spending time looking at that, super important. The other thing is that the copy, at this point, your copy is better. You need to have that segmentation we talked about, different types of car washes, ones that have express car washes versus like more of like a where your car goes through and it kind of rolls through the line and it washes for you automatically versus the one where people do it or whatever. It's like those are two different types of car washes. So those are going to need two different types of copy. They're going to have two different kinds of problems. So when you're running a coordinated campaign, not only are you measuring the results, but you're also able to understand like why that copy is performing or underperforming. So if you talk about the benefits, for example, of like if you're a SaaS company, you're selling SaaS for car washes, and you provide something that can allow customers can like pay on their own or something like that, so the car wash can run 24/7, and companies get X% more revenue overnight because some people work different jobs and they end up taking their car to the car wash at 3 in the morning or whatever. It's like these are the kind of things that you can hit on and copy. And so you're using that data and you're having that data apply in your copy. And so this is beyond spin tax. This is programmatic copy generation. So you've got like unique pitches and unique messaging positioning across that whole list. And then you're monitoring the performance of that over time. And I also believe that part of running this is multi-channel outreach is part of the norm. Now we talked about how Smartlead can facilitate that using those manual steps, building in call tasks, building in social media touches. In my opinion, when you're getting here to this stage, multi-channel is part of it. Maybe it's WhatsApp, but you can't just be relying on one channel only to do all of the work.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're getting replies. If you're sending an email and you get a reply back, you better do whatever it takes to convert that further. The email tool did its job. You identified a person, you reached out, they confirmed they were interested via email. Now you got to go be a salesperson. You need to go do the job, the art and the science and the craft, of selling, which is get that to move forward. Just because they replied to one email doesn't mean they'll reply to every other one. People might get busy. I'll give you an example here. So I have 3 meetings that we have next week. And I've been following up with these people for a year to get the meeting booked. It takes time and you have to be patient. And if someone says they're interested in what you do, guess how many times how many follow-ups should you do? Infinite. Keep following up until they tell you to leave them alone. If they say they're interested and they have this problem and your product really works, you have an obligation to follow up with them. Now, Eunice is asking about how do we do hyper-personalized emails? I think a tool like Clay is really powerful here. Now, there are others, Data Bar, and there are others that do similar things to what Clay does. It's an emerging category, I think. But basically, and you can even do it in Google Sheets. But you're going to have variables, and you're going to extract information about those companies, and then you can use tools like ChatGPT and other AI models to basically come up with that personalization. And then what that looks like in Smartlead is that those are going to be variables. Those are going to be variables inside of your Smartlead sequences. Now, we've got a good question here. Gabe's asking, is it a reasonable expectation to be able to implement Clay on your own? Frankly, it depends. I would say, I've seen a lot of organizations really struggle to adopt Clay. This is part of the reason why I'm so bullish just keeping with our animal theme here, why I'm so optimistic about the value that agencies add. This stuff is really hard. And if you're not doing it day in and day out, and if your organization is reasonably big, you're going to have some resources, and it'll probably just save you a heck of a lot of time to get someone come in and help. Rashad's talking about how they're also using Make to do some really interesting things here. Make.com for some interesting automation tools. And some people may find that easier, or Zapier, or things like that. Now, this is an interesting question from Eunice that I want to touch on. How does Smartlead know which variation for which company after I'm doing these personalized emails? So Smartlead does keep track of variations, definitely. But this is where I believe the naming convention is so important. So if you have a real unique offer, my recommendation is that those should be separate campaigns. Just when you think about the data model and the hierarchy of the data of the campaign, if you're doing this at the campaign level, it's much easier to parse out results. My recommendation is that if you're doing variations within Smartlead, that they should be variations within a theme. Testing comparable subject lines. Now, Smartlead does give you variation breakout reporting, which is awesome. But if you want to take that data and you want to extract it and do that transformation somewhere else, if you're using other reporting and BI tools, I do believe that because Smartlead doesn't bill you for the number of campaigns you have, I think there's a benefit in having in doing more of this variation at the campaign level. Okay, let's keep going here. Some really good questions. Someone may be able to speak to this. Gabe's asking, okay, if I bring in someone, what's the price range for a small company? I'm trying to understand the scale of a budget. So I would say, like, when you think about bringing in help, let's answer this and then we'll keep going. This is a great question by Gabe. So if you think about bringing in help, there's a couple different ways people can help you. One is they can run the whole thing for you, end to end, everything. Run the campaigns, manage the domains, write the copy, do all that stuff. I think increasingly you're finding people that can help with just like creating those clay tables, more of specialized consultants that just focus on clay. It's your job to bring the ICP and the knowledge, and maybe you even manage most of the Smartlead piece. So I'd say if you go to Clay's community on Slack and you say, listen, we're looking for help in this role, I think you might be able to get a sense of who can help you and what that budget looks like. Clay can be difficult to scope unless you have a really good sense of what you're asking for. You might be able to do this on a project basis, or you might find somebody who can do it on an hourly basis for you. But I would say my biggest advice, just kind of keeping with the theme of today, is you kind of walk before you run. So if you're doing campaigns at a certain level right now, you don't have to do this crazy, every single thing is GPT maximized, whatever. Just get a little bit better today versus where you are today. So if you're not checking the status of your emails, for example, you can have someone come in and help you set up Clay and do the email verification. Or, if you're doing that email verification, but then, what you want to have is you want to do better segmentation. Just have them help you use maybe formulas or Clayjet to segment and split that list up into 2 or 3 buckets, something like that. So that would be my encouragement, is think about incremental progress. Someone had a comment here that I thought was just spot on about how Charles said, it's a never-ending journey. I think that's right. I think that's exactly right. I think that's exactly the mindset you want to have. And it's a never-ending journey, and you're gonna keep going. The good news and the bad news. It's kind of Sisyphusian. I mean, you never get the boulder over the hill. You're always pushing, unfortunately. But that you always get a chance to learn and get better too. All right, so let's talk about this last bucket here. Really great questions. I really, really, really appreciate the engagement. Love the chat. Thanks, everybody. Let's talk about optimized. What does optimized look like? I think that the biggest thing that makes this unique versus the other things we talked about is the feedback loops and the automation. Is that you've got triggers that are happening so that when bounce rates hit a certain level, or when reply rate exceeds, which is positive, exceeds a certain level. Oh, sorry. Hold on, this little thing is jumping out of control here. There we go. There's our cheetah. That it's a strategic asset that's driving other channels. You've got automation in multiple steps. You've got it fully integrated with a system of record. You're able to see when things are working. You can follow it all the way through the funnel to closed won. You can even look at retention. So I can see, hey, when I engage with someone from an outbound perspective, How long does it take me to close them? What's the average deal size? How quickly do those deals close? What does our retention look like for outbound sourced versus inbound sourced? You're taking advantage of multiple channels, and you've got different, you've got a team involved. You've got multiple people on the team involved. And you potentially even have like an outbound leadership council, some sort of strategic function within the org where people are sharing best practices between marketing, sales, and customer success, and identifying, hey, like this is an interesting thing that we're seeing in customer success. Customers are telling us during onboarding that they actually switched from this other tool because we offer X. Get that to the SDR, get that to the GTM, get that to the function, get that to the agency. We should be talking about that feature. Yeah, we offer it. And during onboarding, customers are stoked about it. And here's why. We should be running campaigns that speak to that pain point. That I think the biggest thing is when you get running a level 5 org, you've got a lot of automation and there's a lot of communication, cross-functional communication between the teams. I just want to touch really quickly on why I use Sync to a CRM. Now, we obviously focus on HubSpot and Salesforce. There are others, many systems of record out there. We've got customers asking about syncing to data warehouses like Snowflake. I mean, I've mentioned this a few times, but I just want to drive this home. You want to be able to attribute revenue. You want full funnel tracing of what's working, not just positive reply rate. It's important. It's really important, but it's not everything. We don't just want replies because I don't know about you, but I can't pay my mortgage with positive replies. I need people to eventually decide to give me money. And I think your organization is probably the same way. We want to have visibility across the organization so people can see what's going on. Not everyone's going to understand what's happening. And if we're using a really advanced go-to-market motion, very few people in the organization are going to understand what in the world we are talking about. But at the minimum, we want them to be able to see what's happening. So when a sales rep or an AE, when they get past a lead that we generate for them through a tool like Smartlead, they can see what we were doing, right? Without them having to necessarily understand how it was made. They could just say, tastes great, love it. And then lastly, blocking outreach. Smartlead has a very powerful block list function. API allows you to do that on a dynamic basis. We want to use real-time, real-world data from our CRM when customers are moving into that status of customer or open deal or whatever. We want to prevent them from outreach. So our CRM or our system of record, it's important for those reasons. Let's see. We've got some comments here. I want to jump in here, and I think we just kind of shift into Q&A here at the end. But before we do that, Akash, I just want to give you a chance.
Absolutely. I do have one.
Take the lead here. I'm gonna also turn off my screen here because I got nothing on. Well, yeah, I'll turn it off because I don't have anything else. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So my question is, I'm talking to users on a daily basis, right? You see, some people are probably on the level 3 already, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Some people are probably on the level 1, and ideally, where they'd want to be, where everybody desires to be, is in the level 5. So if you can just give us a quick recap of pointers as what are all the things that they need to look for if they have to straight jump into level 4 or level 5, what would it be, Harris?
Yeah. So I mean, if basically you feel like you're doing outbound and you feel like it's not working, I think the first question is the two places I think to look to move yourself up the curve are, where am I getting my data from?
True.
And how am I engaging my prospects? And I think that if you improve your data sourcing, so you get more fresh or more segmented lists, and then you engage with those lists using tools where when you send an email, then people actually get it. That's what Smartlead is solving for. I think if you're doing those two things, you're gonna, and then the third piece to that is that you do it consistently. That'll move you from like a level 0, level 1 up to a level 3, level 4. So yeah, I think it's those three pieces I think are the most important thing. And so if you're not sure, the place I would start would be your tech stack, because if you're landing in spam, nothing else matters. So I would start there. Then the next place I would go would be, where am I sourcing these lists from? Then the third one is, what's my process, and how am I doing this consistently? So that's that's the order I would go in. Is if I'm landing in spam, stop landing in spam. If I'm emailing the wrong people, start emailing the right people. Then let's email more people. But I would go in that order. Yeah.
Got it. And once the process is done, probably the next thing would it be, looking at the reporting and understanding, having feedback loops, basically.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Definitely. Yeah, I would say feedback loops and then looking at multi-channel. Like, I mean, I think here's the thing, like Smartlead enables it through manual tasks, but like not all of this is like what a traditional sequencer has to do. But I think what the point is like you can only expect email to do so much. Like at some point, if someone says to you, I'm interested, you got to get their attention. I mean, what more do you want? They said, yeah, I have this problem. Pick up the phone, call them back. Add them on LinkedIn, send them a note in the mail, send them a direct mail
True.
to get their attention. Like email did its job, right? I mean, you discovered someone and they validated to you, yeah, I'm interested. If you're not willing to, if you say, well, I emailed them back and they never got back to me, I don't know, I guess, okay. Like people are
I
busy.
think
It's
that's
not
why. True.
it's not personal. People are
Absolutely.
busy.
And that's one major advantage of multi-channel as well, right? So even if it's a no, or even if it's a not interested, you get to hear from it at least from any channel, be it call, be it a message, or be it a LinkedIn message at some point.
Yes, totally.
Completely aligned.
Totally.
Completely
Yeah,
aligned.
yeah. And I think what the power of email is that it allows you to do it at scale. And that's
True.
incredibly useful because otherwise you're making 10,000 phone calls. I mean, I don't know about you, but I would rather make 10 calls, right?
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
know, and so because that's the most valuable time. So it's like, what do we want to do? We use these tools so we can spend more time talking to our customers and to our prospective customers. And so yeah, a really good question here by Elvira here. What's best practice to move from active to consistent? So if the response rates are low, I would say, if that means you're actively thinking about outbound, you're somewhat sporadically, but you are sending emails. But if your response rates are low, I would focus on why before I'm consistently cranking out underperforming campaigns. And that's no offense. It's okay. Response rates being low is okay. You're learning. I can't tell you how many. I mean, I've been doing this for 4 years now. Like the number one failure mode in outbound is failure to launch. It's not rockets blowing up in the sky. It's people didn't even build the rocket in the first place. I mean, that's the number one failure mode that I've seen in outbound over 4 years is failure to launch, failure to just try. So if you're in that position, if you're in that active level, like Elvira was asking about here, um, first of all, I just recognize that you're ahead of a lot of people who say, "Oh yeah, I watch this stuff. I watch these videos on YouTube. One day I'm going to send some outbound. One day, one day, one day, one day, one day." So think about data. Think about segmentation. Think about the offer. Enzo Crosso at C17 did some really excellent work on the offers. Um, I would say also it's possible that you may be getting some conversion from other channels.
Mhm.
We work with Understory, who Smartlead partner. What we found, they also run paid ads, and what they've found with their clients is that they have customers that are converting from other channels. So they're not necessarily replying, but then they go to HubSpot and they see that they get inbound from that prospect that they emailed yesterday, new sign up today, no reply,
Right.
but it converted. And Understory, we've found 2 to 3x pipeline lift. So if they email 10 people, they've got another 10 to 20 that have been converting through other channels.
Right.
So when you talk about reply rates being low, definitely you want to improve that. It's possible, however, depending on your product and your go-to-market motion, that you may be getting some conversion elsewhere. So I would say think about that, and that's the value of getting the data in the CRM, whether you do it, with us or some other way. But those conversions matter, and those conversions don't always come through the same channel at the same time from the same address. Sometimes they come from somewhere else, and that's a fact. I've looked at example after example, real data. I mean, what one Outbound Buddy, a Smartlead partner that we had a campaign with them, customer thought they only generated 17 meetings from outbound in a single month. But then when they looked at multi-touch attribution, they looked at all conversion. It was actually
Right.
52,
Wow.
52 meetings that they had booked through outbound, not 17. But they had to open the aperture, look at the whole funnel. So that's something to think about when you think about conversion and is it working or not. It depends on your situation, but I just want to mention it because I think it's relevant. We've definitely seen that. It's like, oh, actually, outbound's working way better than we thought. It's just that people don't always reply right away to the one message at that one time.
True.
They forward it to somebody, they post it on the Slack.
Aligned. Aligned. And Harris probably will open the floor for questions, right? So, but
Yeah.
before we do that, one last question from my end is agency versus doing this in-house, right?
Yep.
Because a lot of sales teams, a lot of early stage startups, they are confused as to if they can actually do everything in-house or if they have
Yeah.
to approach an agency. What are your thoughts on it? And if they have to go for an agency, when is the right time that they can identify that?
Yeah. I think that the agency versus in-house is a really interesting and it's a good question. I think that if you need results quickly, agency.
True.
If you have some time, or if you have just an exceptional person on your team,
Right.
then you can do it in-house. If you're going to do it in-house, pick a person. Pick that person who's good at figuring stuff out. They're creative and they get stuff done, and stick them on it. Don't have the whole team try to figure it out at once. Get success going with one person who's really competent and capable, and then replicate what they're doing across your org. And they'll know your internal process and your internal requirements, and they'll be able to build it specific to your org. Um, but those are the people who I've seen successful have done it that way.
Got it. Got it. Super useful. And we'll pick up questions from the chat. But people, like, the floor is also open for questions. So if you want to directly be on Spotlight, ask your questions to Harris, please raise your hand. You have the React icon in the center. Just click on that, raise hand, and I'll spotlight you. You can ask your questions directly to Harris. There you go. Philip is here. Philip, if you can turn on your video, I'll go ahead and spotlight you, mate. All right. So what you can do is I'll probably unmute you directly so that you can go ahead and ask your question. Can you unmute yourself? Yep.
Yeah,
There you
hey
go.
guys. So my camera is not working, so that's why my screen is black. So my question right now, I'm targeting e-commerce brands, and I'm trying to find ways to personalize my emails so that each email is basically unique. And right now the offer is a free audit of Google Ads and also their site for CRO. And I'm trying to find ways to personalize each email, so I'm not sure how exactly to do it. Should I personalize the email, like scrape their site and personalize by the product they're selling, or personalize by who their likely target market is, or in some other ways?
Yeah. I'm probably not gonna love the answer, but I think you're gonna learn this just by testing. I don't know exactly what you're solving, what problem you're solving for them, but it's gonna depend on on that, and that'll determine the personalization that you might want to put in there. So if you're improving their conversion rate on their page, or if it's a security related thing, or if it's financing, I don't know, or web dev or something like that, you're just gonna have to test it. And now, fortunately, with ecom, they're very transactional, and you can make some assumptions. Eric has done some good videos, basically like extrapolating based on the average value of these products. Which here's what I think we can save you if we improve X, Y, Z, or whatever. If it's like abandoned carts or whatever. And it looks like there's some feedback here potentially in the chat as well that you might want to check out. But I think you're just going to have to test it. And I think that if you use a tool like Clay, it can allow you to create those multiple variations at scale programmatically. Um, but I would think about where you've had conversion, like for the customers that you have, why? What is it what was the problem they have? And I would just focus on that and try to replicate that success. Um, because what you're doing is relatively unique. And so I would try to focus on that. But like just an audit, it's kind of like, people get emails like that a lot. So try to figure out how to stand out. But I also, maybe somebody here has better experience with ecom, more experience with ecom than I have. So I don't want to act like the total authority on that one.
Got it. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Philip. Any other questions? Harut, if you can turn on your video, I'll spotlight you, sir. There you go. Go for your question.
All right, thank you. Hi, Harris. Can you hear me okay?
Crystal clear.
All right, awesome. So thank you for all this great information. I love that kind of that maturity life cycle. So interestingly enough, we are in the industry with supporting a new regulation that they just passed. I hate regulations unless it brings new business. It's called Cybersecurity Maturity Model. So for all of the defense contractors, so all the companies that do work with the defense industry, the defense, the IB, they have to get new certification. So we build a product. So we build a list and we're trying to reach out to them. We have a handful of customers. So we're starting to build campaigns to get to them, but we're starting from zero, no experience. And then, you know, a lot of great feedback, kind of starting to fumble in the dark. We warmed up our lists, warmed up all our accounts, I should say, about 47.
Nice.
And what we like to do is work with some agencies to we like to use our systems. We like to do things in-house and learn. And agencies want to kind of bring everything in-house and keep the data, keep the lists. And I'm wondering if your agency would be able to kind of work with us, with our system, provide coaching. Do you work in a system like that where if you work with the companies to kind of guide, be compensated based on kind of the outcome and the performance, but more within their system? So we have obviously Smartlead, and we'll probably sign up for Clay. We use Seamless to get data from them, but I hate those bastards because they make you work for hours to click button to research, which I don't understand why they do that. We'll probably switch to Smart Lead Magic to do that. But anyways, I'm interested in to understand if you have any kind of thoughts on how to get going, and if you can provide coaching advice and
for sure. So I mean, so for us, like, so I don't run an agency anymore. I did shut my agency down, but we work with a bunch, and so I can give you some perspective. So generally, the performance-based pay per lead model, they tend to run the whole thing end to end, and they also tend to send more email. But all you pay for are the qualified leads and the pay per meeting, depending on your customer value. You know, that pay per meeting could be anywhere from, you know, I don't know, a couple $100 to even up to $1,000. It depends on what you do, who you talk to, but they tend to own the process. So I think if I were you, what I would focus on, I would probably drill down and focus on either like a Clay person who can help manage that process of segmentation for you, and or a copywriter. Dean's asking if this is going to be available. Dean, I believe the answer is yes, but I'll let Smartlead answer that. So I think I would focus on a specific area where you're stuck and just get a specialist for that. If you want to shepherd the whole process through, frankly, like you're set up a Smartlead, you're already familiar with multiple data providers. You know the problem which is this regulatory shift. I think that probably I would just focus on a copywriter, and or maybe a Clay person to help on the data side. I don't think you need an end-to-end person. I would just take a shot at it like you're doing. And I just want to say to everybody here, I mean, first of all, if you think you can help, give a holler, right? Maybe you can help them out. So maybe send them a message after or something like that. Find them on LinkedIn if you can help Harut. But
well, how do I find like qualified people? Right. I
well, Smartlead has
anyone that you guys recommend, Harris or Nakash.
Yeah. Smartlead has an expert directory you should check out. But I just want to say in general to everyone here, this kind of regulatory shift, this is a great use case for outbound. So when we talk about being reactive versus proactive, there's a change in the market. Overnight, something changed. This is exactly the kind of thing where outbound can work really well, especially if you have a good offer. But this is something where, like, the thing about outbound is like we can find the right people and we can get a message in front of them. It's like a private ad network. A lot of people are using that, and I think that's exactly right. This is the kind of thing where outbound tends to do really well. So to me, it sounds like a really exciting opportunity. It sounds like you put some good engineering and thought into how you're solving the problem. So I would say, to me, ultimately, it's two components of whether this works for you or not. It seems like the lists and then the copy, specifically the offer. So think about maybe finding a copywriter in particular.
We sent, so with the lists, what we did, we went and SAM, have you heard of SAM.gov? Basically, everyone who gets a contract from Gov. So we extracted the data from there, anyone who got an award from the DoD, Department of Defense. And then we reversed engineered that, found the domains, and then found all the contacts from that. So we know they got a contract from the DoD, and we know they have to comply with this regulation. So we're not shooting in the dark.
Yeah.
Because every DoD hands out almost $1 trillion a year under anything from weapons to satellites to chicken eggs and uniforms, right? So every industry you can think of, you can't segment it. So how do I find that directory, by the way? Do you guys know where I can find those kind of qualified copywriters or clay experts?
Yeah. So if you go to smartlead.ai, I'll let the Smartlead team follow up, but there should be under resources, there should be a certified partners page.
True. You have it on the website, Harut. So we'll be able to see that. So you have a certified partners page. Yep. You have it right there, sir.
Can you give me the link? I don't see it.
Here, you got
see
that,
resources. Oh, certified partners. Here we go. And all right.
Yep. And you can do, and there's ways to filter that by specialty.
Email copywriting. Okay, cool. Probably email copywriting. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for coming.
All right. What was your website, by the way? I was trying to look for that article you mentioned on the.
Oh, yeah. So we're outboundsync.com. Yeah, I'll give outboundsync.com. I can drop it in the chat here. I'll DM it to you. Yeah, outboundsync.com. If you just type in, let me see how good we are with Google. Let me see. Outbound Maturity Curve. Yeah, if you just type in, nice, cool. If you just type in Outbound Maturity Curve in Google, you should get it.
Okay. You mentioned there's like a big article you had on tagging or organizing names.
Organizing names.
Does that ring a bell?
Not sure. Might be spacing. I'm not sure.
That's all right. Cool.
Okay. Awesome. Great questions, man. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, there's a link to join the Smartlead Slack community that Swapno just dropped in. Yeah, definitely. If you're not in the Slack community for Smartlead, you should definitely join that.
Hi, Harris. Thanks, everyone. I know we overshot this by 5 minutes. My question will be really quick. So we are an automation as a service agency where we create workflows and basically tailored to specific business cases. And currently we are running this offer where we do 2 complementary workflows and do a complementary automation audit. And the issue in the market is they are kind of scared because the policies, their SOPs, they do change all the time. And obviously market is very dynamic. So sometimes their business requirement changes. And that is why we have this 90 days post implementation support. But still, I cannot get people to say yes. Is there something wrong with my offer, or Harden, I need a copywriter? Because I've been in this space for past 6-7 years. We get a good 3 to 4% of response rate, and a quarter of these responses are positive.
Yeah. I mean, I like what you're thinking about. I mean, great comments in the chat. I obviously get a sense that you know what you're talking about, or you're using ChatGPT to make comments.
No, not at all.
I doubt it. So what I think, it's a means to an end, right? Like nobody wants a workflow. They want the result of the workflow. And so I think if you think look at the ones that you've built in the past and like, where do they sit within the organization? And what's the problem that you're solving? And I know we're a little long here, folks. I think we'll probably go for 3 more minutes, maybe, if that's okay with everybody. So we'll try to get to Eunice's question, and then we'll probably call it.
Yep, part of.
You have to think about what is the workflow solving for them, and I would center your solution around that, right?
Okay.
So it's like, hey, we've helped companies automate their handoff from like sales to customer success, and as a result, their retention has gone up. Do you have any workflows between those departments that you think like you could maybe use help solving to help your customers, to help improve your retention or reduce your onboarding time or accelerate your time to value? Like that's the thing that they want to solve, and the workflow is the means to the end. And they might, because people's willingness to put up with crappy process is like pretty high, right? Like they're willing to put up, I mean, they're obviously already putting up with it, right? Like they're
Yes.
not working with you, right? So you have to kind of tie it to like, I get it. Like nobody wants to build another workflow per se, but don't you want this other thing? So that I think the offer is an interesting one because you're like, well,
Mm-hmm.
this is how I get you there. But
Mm-hmm.
like that is the thing that no one like wakes up and says, I would love somebody for me to build a workflow today, you know? But they do say, gosh, onboarding is stuck. Why are onboarding stuck? Why is it taking us a month to finish onboarding? It should be like closer to 2 weeks. And you say, well, data from the sales team is not getting passed over to customer success. So they're having to start from scratch every time. Or data from marketing is not getting passed to sales. Stuff like that. You know, sales is having to manually do research. And so we solve that for you. The way we do it is workflows. I can build two and so you can see how it works. Is that interesting? So I would try to think about that. It's a hard problem. It's a hard problem. I mean, you're obviously smart. You're obviously a smart
Yep.
guy. So it's not like easy, but I would personally think about it that way.
Understood. I'll implement this in my next campaign. Definitely.
Okay, awesome, cool.
Awesome.
All right,
Thanks.
Eunice, you're closing us out, man.
Yeah, last question for the day is going to be Eunice. Sir, if you can turn on the video, I'll quickly spotlight you. Eunice, you there? Or even can you unmute yourself at least?
Might have fallen asleep with his hand up.
And there is.
Not at all. I'm trying to unmute it, but it's all good now. How are you guys doing?
Good,
Good,
sir.
man. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you too, man. First of all, thank you so much for the call, for the knowledge, especially Harris. It's been really helpful for us. My question is really quick. So, as you said, like you use Clay. So, I was wondering, like, how can I get to the step to the personalization of like phrases in the emails at scale, like using ChatGPT for scrapping or like website scrapping? Because like I want to have like different email for each prospect because now I have the lists. I have the emails. It's been warmed up since like 4 or 5 weeks now. So I'm thinking to just get this done so I can start like the ball get rolling, you know?
Yep, totally. So there's like I think like there's three ways to do this. So well, four, I guess. The basic way would be like every email is the same. We don't want to do that. Um, the next
Yeah,
is
for sure.
using spin tags, right? So you're finding just equivalent words. Hi, hey, hello, buenos dias, good morning, howdy. Okay.
hmm
And Smartlead supports that, and it's better than nothing, but we can do better. The next thing is, I think, to take your copy and break it into chunks. So instead of just single word spin tags, take like a sentence, and you can use AI to generate variations of sentences, and you break that email into chunks of like pain point, solution, next step, or whatever. It's like a three chunks of the email. I think the final version would be that you're feeding all of those into like a larger prompt, and you're having GPT through Clay programmatically write each email unique with referenced emails. And Clay has some built-in templates that can help you do that. And if you're kind of heavy-handed about how you're prompting it, then you can make sure that it's not just like adding like I hope all is well or whatever the stuff at the beginning that you don't want.
Mm,
That would be like the kind of the four ways to think about it. First one, don't do it. Everything's the same. Second one, spin tags, okay. But spin tags allows you to start thinking structurally about the email and the components of the email. And then the last one
okay.
is you put what you're doing when you're creating those structure pieces, you push that into a prompt, and then you have GPT do it boom, 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 boom each time. And you can feed it more context, feed it the company description, feed it the industry, feed it headcount, feed it the title of the contact, stuff like that.
And how do you do like the feeding part? Is it like using Clay? Because I don't have
Using
any idea
Clay,
about Clay for the
yeah,
moment.
so each of those would be columns, right? So imagine you have a table, spreadsheet, Clay table, and you have like job title, then you have industry, then you have company description. Then in your
Oh,
final
okay.
Clay like composition column, in that prompt, you would say, I'm going to give you information about a company, including their job title, industry, company description. And then you kind of work through, and then you would give it an example email to have it work off of.
Oh, okay. So you're like in the beginning for Clay, you give emails, then he get like all the information so you can personalize on this information, the emails. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. I
Exactly.
see. I see. I see. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you so
that's
much,
right.
guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Great question. Great question. And Charles
Perfect.
mentioned Clay's Twain integration. Definitely check that out.
Harris, Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming in for the second time. We'd love to have you more. And this was gold, right? For me, I got a lot of new pointers. This was absolutely, crazy. And people, check out OutboundSync, outboundsync.com. The website is there on the chat. And you search for the article. It's probably, I think, Harris, your smile made me realize it's showing up on the top. So it's probably up there on top. Check it out. Check out OutboundSync. And quick call outs from my end before I finish up. Smartlead base plan users API is live. Our global analytics version 2 is going to be out live next week. And we also have some new vendors who are going to be onboarded for smart centers next week. So these are updates from my end. Harris, do you have anything else before we part ways?
No, thank you all. It's a privilege to chat with the community here. I really appreciate everyone's time, and I really appreciate all the active participation. Makes this really fun. So thank you all very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for taking time, people. As we always say, 3 consistent things in life: death, taxes, and office hours every Thursday. See you all on the next one. Have a great week. Cheers. Bye-bye.